Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the literal mechanics of the world's most successful weekend startup sprints. You know, how a scrappy team takes a raw idea and turns it into a working prototype in just 24 to 48 hours. But more importantly, we're looking at why a select few of these, specifically 6 projects we're going to look at today, went on to become massive funded companies, while the rest, well, they're completely forgotten by Monday morning. It's not just luck, guys. There's an actual anatomy to a winning prototype, and we're going to dissect the whole thing.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the high stakes of the $1,000,000 weekend, then get into mastering problem scoping, break down the actual prototype sprint, explore the power of pitching, and finally talk about deployment beyond the weekend.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the $1,000,000 weekend. We are kicking things off by looking at the downright incredible stakes of shipping a working prototype in just 48 hours.
$80 million. Let that sink in for a second. That is exactly what Skype paid to acquire GroupMe just one single year after it was built by 2 developers at a TechCrunch hackathon. Seriously, think about that timeline. From a weekend coding bender with cold pizza to an $80 million exit in 12 months. It is mind-blowing.
And that brings us to these 6 famous projects: Carousel, GroupMe, Docuracy, Zarly, Apatasis, and Easy Taxi. Easy Taxi, by the way, went on to raise $75 million. So why did these 6 absolutely crush it while thousands of other hackathon projects just fizzled out? Well, they didn't just stumble onto novel ideas. They mastered a very specific formula to force intense focus and actually ship a working prototype in a matter of hours. They hit the nail on the head when it came to execution. Which leads us perfectly into section 2, mastering problem scoping. Because the secret to how those 6 teams ship so incredibly fast really comes down to one critical discipline. You see, winning teams completely conquer what formal problem-solving methodologies call the D1 phase. That stands for problem description and classification. If this initial phase is even a little bit vague, it becomes a massive bottleneck, and your whole weekend is pretty much doomed. Those successful 6 teams, they absolutely did not just start coding blindly. They locked down and validated their assumptions first. Now here is the modern hack, leveraging AI to supercharge this exact classification phase. Recent data shows that integrating large language models right at the D1 phase produces a staggering 99% time saving. We're talking about reducing a 4-day process down to just 30 minutes, all while hitting nearly 90% accuracy. I mean, talk about an instant competitive edge when the clock is ticking. So, to rapidly validate their idea in that absolute make-or-break first hour, the best teams run their concept through this 4Ws problem canvas, straight out of the formal AI project cycle. It's simple but powerful. Who is affected? What's the actual evidence? Where is this prominent? And why are we even trying to solve it? Running through this canvas is exactly how those top 6 teams we mentioned locked in their target audience and potential impact right out of the gate. Because honestly, the gap between a completely forgettable demo and a funded company is all about scoping. A losing idea? It's way over-scoped. It's teams desperately name-dropping trendy frameworks while trying to duct tape together 5 half-broken features. But a winning idea is tightly scoped to one single, beautifully polished feature. It works end-to-end, and you could explain the whole shebang in just one sentence. All right, section 3, the prototype sprint. With a tightly scoped problem securely in your back pocket, it is time to enter the high-energy execution phase. But what exactly are you executing? Well, if you look at corporate innovation rubrics, like this one from the NJED AI Innovation Challenge, they prove a really crucial point. Judges care way more about seeing a working modular MVP by demo day than they do about raw technical complexity. Simply put, solid execution beats raw novelty every single time. And if you're specifically building an AI project, how does that change your sprint? Unlike your standard IT projects that you might manage with typical agile methodologies, AI sprints are heavily experimental. Instead of just setting up a database, you're doing iterative, hands-on model tuning to build systems that actually learn and predict. You absolutely have to account for that unpredictability in your tight weekend timeline. So to execute at literal breakneck speed despite all that unpredictability, modern developers are smart. They don't reinvent the wheel, they use modular building blocks. We're talking about an arsenal of awesome open source tools. Gradio for instant UI generation, Camel for scalable multi-agent systems, and LifeKit agents for real-time voice AI. You just snap these complex workflows together in minutes. Moving to section 4, pitching and narrative consistency. Because once your MVP is finally working, the absolute smartest teams do something that feels honestly incredibly unnatural to most developers.
Listen, if you take away just one tactical piece of advice from this entire explainer, let it be this. Stop coding early. Teams that literally force themselves to stop allocate at least 2 hours to build their deck and rehearse a 3-minute pitch twice consistently outperform teams that have way better code but a terrible story. Presentation is a massively weighted scoring category for judges. It's all about framing the problem, showing the solution, giving a killer demo, and proving the impact.
To really stand out, you have to realize that pitching a prototype is remarkably similar to storyboarding and animation, like what we see in this research paper on AI-assisted cinematic pre-production. Just like a director uses storyboards to map out scenes and emotional arcs, you need to storyboard the exact user journey of your demo for the judges. As these researchers point out, it's all about preserving emotional depth through narrative consistency. This right here, this was the secret weapon of those 6 successful startups we've been talking about. They didn't just show code. They made the judges viscerally feel the frustration of the problem and then the profound relief of their solution. And finally, Section 5. Deployment beyond the weekend. Because what actually happens when the 48-hour timer runs out, the adrenaline fades, and all those pizza boxes get thrown away? Well, as the AI project cycle dictates, deployment is the ultimate final phase. This is where the rubber finally meets the road. Your end-to-end feature now has to survive the real world, which brings immediate challenges you definitely didn't face testing on your local host. We're talking seamless system integration, monitoring performance in the wild, and keeping data quality high. That's exactly why thorough documentation during the sprint is so vital. It is literally the bridge that lets a weekend hack be picked up, funded, and deployed months down the line. All right, thank you so much for joining this explainer today. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We know the hackathon format forces the intense, crazy focus needed to get a working prototype off the ground. But when Monday morning inevitably arrives, do you have the stamina, the documentation, and the ruthless scoping discipline to turn your scrappy weekend sprint into the next $80 million company? Something to think about. See you next time.